Hello everyone, I'm Mr. Wood, and I got this beautiful cheeseburger I just can't wait to sink my teeth into. But before I do that, I thought it would be a perfect opportunity to talk about the Columbian Exchange. Let's take a look at our curriculum map. We have certainly covered a lot of ground in our world history class. We looked at the fall of Rome and several ancient civilizations, leading all the way up through the Renaissance, and finally we are on Unit 8, the modern world. If I open that up, we have the section on the Age of Exploration, and within that, Voyages of Discovery, and today's lesson on the Columbus Exchange. So that is where we are when we're looking at our curriculum map. And we're going to flip this over, and we'll just draw a quick sketch of the world at the time. So if I were to tear apart this cheeseburger, you would see that I have some bread right there, and I have this cheese and the meat, and we have lettuce, tomato, and there's some of the bread. Now let me just give you a quick disclaimer, and that is the actual cheeseburger wasn't invented until the 1880s by Fletcher Davis from Athens, Texas. Good for him. Thank you, Fletcher Davis. So, what we're talking about in this lesson is actually regarding the 1500s and the 1600s. So, the cheeseburger wouldn't be invented for at least another 200 to 300 years. So I just want to make sure everyone out there understands the cheeseburger is for demonstration purposes only. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's look at the 1500s and 1600s and look at this cheeseburger. Now I have bread, I have cheese and meat and lettuce, and I have tomato. Now, technologically speaking, which of these ingredients would originate from the old world Europe? Now, if you think about it, technologically speaking and from a production standpoint, all of these could be made in the old world except for the tomato. Because the old world had grains to make bread, they had cows and livestock for the beef and milk for the cheese, and also they were growing lettuce pretty natively, but they had nothing like tomatoes. When people think of the tomato and the foods that they eat, a lot of people think about Italian foods like pizza or spaghetti or other Italian cuisines. And yes, Italy is home to many varieties of tomatoes, but they got their start across the world in South America. In fact, they say the Aztecs were cultivating tomatoes since 700 AD, and they used them cut up in their everyday dishes. Europe took a little while to catch on. In fact, as late as even the 1500s in Spain, they were still using tomatoes as mere decorations. Army Colonel Robert Gibbon Johnson, he said that they were safe back in 1820, but nobody believed him. When you go back to Salem, New Jersey, they challenged him to eat a whole basket of tomatoes and declared that if he ate even one, he would die right there on the spot. Well, of course he ate a whole basket of tomatoes and didn't die, and so the rest is history. The Journal of Economic Perspectives defines the Columbian Exchange as the widespread transfer of animals, plants, culture, human populations, technology, and ideas between the American and Afro-Eurasian hemispheres in the 15th and 16th centuries. We can see this principle at work in both Italian cuisine and South American cuisine. The tomato is nice and safe. I have these potatoes, but these French fries are representing potatoes. But wait a minute, potatoes did not originate in the old world. Potatoes actually came from the New World. So the way this worked is you would have people filling up this boat right here, would travel across the Atlantic Ocean, and they would fill their boats with all kinds of goods from the New World, in this case potatoes, and they would travel back, and guess what? Now you've got potatoes in the Old World, and they're growing them and they're planting them, and so there you go. Now you got potatoes all over the world because they're native to the New World. So that's one example of the Columbian Exchange. There were three major things that were exchanged between the Old World and the New World. The first and most obvious are products, and these would go between the Old World to the New, and then old to new, new to old, and you have this two-way street of products. And that would include things like peanuts, potatoes, tomatoes, corn. That would all be going here to here. And then in Europe, they would bring in peaches and sugarcane and honeybees and olives, right, from Greece, and onions. But it wasn't just products. Another thing that was exchanged were ideas. Now, the exchange of ideas you can look at as good, bad, or ugly. For example, you had the religion exchange, where many Europeans came to convert the barbaric Indians to their European religions. The only problem was the Indians already had a religion for many centuries before the Europeans arrived, so you ended up with this sort of pseudo-religions, where you'd have the Indians practicing their pagan ways while you would have a Catholic church dominant in the background. The idea of technology, of weapons, also was there, and so was the idea of slavery, where over 80% of the South American Indians died under harsh conditions. And finally, the third exchange was the exchange of terrible diseases from both sides of the Atlantic. I'm going to throw a product out there, and that's chocolate. Nothing added, just regular cocoa beans. What would you say? Where did it come from first? The Old World or the New World? Hey, if you said the New World, that is correct. Chocolate came from the New World. It sailed on over to the Old World, where they then added European products such as sugar and milk, and now you got these fancy chocolates that come from Europe that have all kinds of cool stuff inside, like this hazelnut, Godiva. So, because of the Columbian Exchange, we can have some pretty good chocolates. I'm gonna eat that, save that for later. Okay, now what about this? Let's talk about coffee. Some good old-fashioned coffee. Ground up coffee beans. So, would coffee start in the Old World or the New World? Now, that's kind of a trick question because the package I have actually says Colombia on it. And the South Americas are known for their coffee production. However, if you would look at the history of coffee, it actually originated in parts of Africa and Europe. They had a hard time spreading to England because the church there thought coffee was kind of evil. It wasn't until the 1600s that coffee was an accepted drink by many. But the drink we know as coffee actually started off in the Old World, traveled to the New World during the Columbian Exchange, and now the coffee, a lot of coffee we grow, tends to come from South America. But it started here in the Old World. So before you bite into that next cheeseburger, think about what's in it, and it's only because of the Columbian Exchange that made it so delicious. See you next time.